Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Like, subscribe, please share. Let's do that. And here's today's joke. Attempted joke, and I give credit to this for little Bruce T. He knows who he is. Here's today's joke. Don't you hate when someone answers their own question? I do. So I've heard some discussion or a lot of discussion about statute of limitations. What a statute of limitations is a limitation in a period of time by which you can bring a lawsuit or a claim. So all that stuff varies from state by state. Each state, as to state claims, has their own periods of time, and you'd have to consult your state to know that. Obviously the best answer is to get a local lawyer and just ask them, call them up. If you have a claim for fraud, what's the statute of limitations for fraud, for example? And they should be able to give you that answer in your particular state. But what the statute of limitations means is if you don't bring a claim, and it could be an absolutely righteous claim, if you don't bring it within a specific period of time, you are foreclosed forever bringing that claim. So people shouldn't sit on their rights also, as a flip side. And the reason why there are statute of limitations, or some of the reasons, or some of the justifications for that, are people's memories fade, so the longer we wait, the harder it is to get a fair shake. And then, of course, there's the practical concerns about overcrowding of courts and costs, etc. So it's a way of disposing of claims kind of in not a very effective way, but it does. So I've been hanging out obviously a lot in the MMTLP crowd and the Tesla crowd, and there's been a lot of discussions about statute of limitations and how long how long it takes for an action to be brought or can be brought. So I kind of wanted to briefly summarize, but ultimately you need to consult a lawyer in your state to get the answer, but I kind of wanted to give you a little bit of the generalities, and perhaps this will calm people's nerves, I hope. Some contracts themselves have limitations period. For example, some insurance policies might require you to bring a claim within a period of time. I've seen insurance policies that say you have to notify us of a claim within 6 periods. Within 6 months. I don't know what 6 periods would be. Within 6 months. That is technically not a statute of limitations, but it is, in effect, a very similar thing, in that if you don't bring the claim to their attention within a period of time, even if it's an excellent claim, you can't pursue it. So just be aware of that in contracts. Sometimes you should look for those provisions that limit your ability to dispute items. So perhaps we all should more carefully review our written contracts. So again, each state has a different period for each claim. So for example, I'll just give you an example. So if you were suing someone who promised to build you a spaceship to go to Venus, and you gave him $10 billion, and the spaceship was supposed to be done January 1, 2023, and there was a time of the essence clause, let's say, in the contract, and they didn't build you the spaceship by January 1, 2023, then theoretically they would be in breach of that contract. If this was a written contract, they'd be in breach of that contract. And in California, for example, you would have 4 years from the date of breach to bring an action. And again, check out in your local jurisdiction, check out what the statute of limitations period. But I'm just referring to California. For a breach of a written contract, you have 4 years from the breach. And in this case, if the breach happened January 1, 2023, because I didn't get the rocket ship, I would have till December 31st, 2026, which is 4 years minus 1 day to bring the action. Theoretically, you could bring it on the next day, but I would never and have never taken that risk. So I would do it 1 day less than the statute of limitations period. Okay, so that's just a general example. On a written contract, they didn't do what they were supposed to do, and in California, you had 4 years. So since MMTLP involves different subject matters, let's kind of take a look at that. So we're talking about for example, federal securities fraud. And then we're just talking about civil cases. So civil cases are cases where you're either seeking money or a ruling, not trying to put somebody in jail for committing a wrong. That's not something that that attorneys like I would do. That's for the government to do. But let's talk about civil federal securities fraud. So let's say that somebody knew that MMTLP stock was bogus when the broker sold it, and they had a bunch of fake short shares, etc. That couldn't have happened, but let's just presume, for the sake of discussion, that did happen. The general federal securities statute of limitations is 2 years from discovery of the fraud, but no more than 5 years from the date of fraud. And again, check this out with your own attorney in your own jurisdiction, but just humor me for our discussion. So 2 years from discovery, 5 years max. So in this case, the way I would examine it, we either knew on December 9th, 2022, when the U3 halt came into place, or it could be as late as April 1, 2023, when the FOIA reply came out. Could be either. Could be other facts within that. Could be later dates. But I'm going to use that, and I probably would focus on the earlier date just to be safe. So if we use the earlier date, we would have 2 years, or until December 8th, 2024, to initiate an action based on federal securities fraud. And that would be 2 years from December 9th, 2022. Could be longer, as I indicated. It might be a later start date. But it appears we have notice now. So it would be 2 years from discovery. Discovery equates to notice. So that would be on a federal securities fraud case. So we were talking about, I think, 2024, and we're still in 2023. RICO, the federal statute, is 4 years, but there's something called equitable tolling, which means that even if there's, and it doesn't apply to all claims, but RICO, for example, it would apply, and on some fraud claims it also might apply, and I'll give you an example coming up. But in a RICO claim, you have 4 years to bring the action from the time that the incident happened. There's something called equitable tolling, as I indicated. So if the bad guy does something like concealment, it's a continuing wrong, there's a conspiracy, then the start date of the statute of limitations will be halted. And that's what tolling refers to. And I'll give you an actual example. Ongoing. I represented and represent an inner city church in LA. In 2008, through a convoluted mess, a lien was placed on the church property. The purported amount of that lien grew over time, so the church was not able to pay it. Because there was fraud in the placement of the lien, and despite the fact that someone was paid $400,000 and some of the money indirectly made it to the church, and despite the statute of limitations of cancellation of the lien being 3 years, so that in effect, if the lien was placed in 2008, that would bring it to 2011. I was able to get a court to toll the statute of limitations period up through 2019 based on concealment and fraud, despite the money being paid. So in this case, the case that's ongoing, and we're almost done with it, and it's actually worked out well for my client. The incident happened in 2008. They weren't aware of it, though, until 2019. Statute of limitations would have been 3 years, so that would have been 2011. But because of what we were able to demonstrate, the court permitted us to go forward with our claim long after the 3 years. In fact, more than 11 years after the incident. So that's an example of equitable tolling. That's something where you didn't know and you found out, and if it was concealed, you might have more time. But again, it's not something you should rely upon. That's something you should ask for an attorney, and they shouldn't really charge you for that kind of information. So if someone comes to me and asks me that kind of question, that's not something I would charge for. So I hope that kind of clarifies the statute of limitations and how it might work. So be aware of limitations period. Don't wait forever to make claims. However, generally, and this is kind of the general rule, but you should not rely upon this, you'll have at least 1 year, if not more, from the date of the wrong to file your action. But if you're absolutely not sure, please call a lawyer. And again, this is not a complicated question, so it shouldn't require a expensive answer. But I hope that kind of at least generally outlines how statute of limitations work, specific ones that might be relevant in our case, the issue of tolling, and most of all, if you're unsure, get the answer from somebody who knows. Anyway, hope that helps. Be well. Have a great day, and talk to you later.